Alrighty, so I am going to see Marissa Myers here at Joseph Beth up in Cincinnati. This is my second time getting to see her. I'm really excited for her new book, Renegades. I can't wait to see what she's going to have to say during this tour. And this is her first stop on her tour for Renegades, so I'm really excited that I get to be one of the first ones. So here we go. So these are all the different covers around the world. And the American version.
Thank you, Earth Maiden. Why is there a Christmas tree? Does anyone else feel like it's a little early? Earth Maiden, did you grow a Christmas tree?
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. You're such a gift.
After the event, I'll lay down and we can take pictures of me under the Christmas tree. Thank you guys so much for being here. I know I say this every time I come here, but for those of you who don't know, way back when my very, very first book came out, Cinder, I went on my very first book tour. I was a new fledgling author. I was so nervous and scared, and my very first book event was right here in this store. And there were like 12 people here, which was awesome. I didn't think anybody would come because you had never heard of me. Nobody had heard of me. But there were 12 people, and it made me feel so happy and welcome. And now to be back here for the launch of Renegades is so cool and so exciting. And thank you all so much for coming out to celebrate it with me. So tonight, I thought that I would kind of take you guys on the journey that I took in writing this book. The idea for Renegades actually came to me many years ago when I was on book tour with Scarlet, my second book. So that was in February of 2013. And the story goes that I was heading to one of my book signings, and I was sitting in the back of this car, and we passed a construction zone. And on the fence of the construction zone, they put one of those signs like, coming soon to this space. And I just saw it out of the corner of my eye, and my brain thought that it read, coming soon, Hero School. And I immediately did a double check, like, what? And it said something completely different. And I thought, that is the coolest idea. I got super excited about it. And sometime later, I mentioned it to my agent, and she took it to my publisher, and they were like, yes, Marissa, please write that. And we sold it as a trilogy. Well, it would still be almost 2 years at that point before I actually sat down to start writing this book for what would be the first draft of the book. And the first draft of the book, which was back then called the Gatlin School for Vigilantes. And I wrote the draft for NaNoWriMo, and the whole time I'm writing and I'm thinking, months go by, and I come back to it sometime later, and I think, okay, what really needs to happen is that I really need to play up the rivalry between the two schools. So I got rid of the idea that like one is really prestigious and one is like not so cool, and made them strictly like there is a school for heroes and there is a school for villains, and they hate each other. And that draft, the second draft of the book, very much became like this high school drama, but with superpowers. And then Clara, she was still the main character. Clara was the one who figured out how to get it back, so that she became instantly popular and everybody loved her. And then there was a prom, and I think the villains crashed the prom at some point. I don't know, it wasn't very good. It was super, super campy, way fun to write. I had a ton of fun writing it, but it was so cheesy. And the whole time as I was writing it, and when I went back to read over it later, I was like, well, that was a lot of fun, but this is not the book that I wanted to write. There's a problem with the two-school system. There's just not really a way to do it that doesn't give it that cheesy rival vibe. So I got rid of the villain school. Now there's only one school. The whole book came about Prudence trying to take care and protect her sister who didn't know that she existed. I don't know. It didn't really work. I don't actually think that I finished that draft. I think I got maybe halfway through and was like, this just isn't working for me. I'm just not feeling it. Maybe I just needed to start throwing together all of these subplots that I had worked out and just kick it off right from the beginning and just go with it. And so I set that draft aside and I started working on version number 4. And I thought, okay, here we go. I'm putting it all in here. There was this girl named Valerie who was like the leader of the gang. But at one point, she got arrested, and they ended up putting her in an asylum. And while she was in the asylum, she started to uncover this dark plot where the doctors were all trying to kidnap superpowered young people and remove their powers from them because they believed that superpowers were evil. Also in the vigilante gang, there was a kid named Max who could see glimpses into the future, and he had seen a vision in which Adrian was super, super important, and he would save the world, but nobody could understand it because Adrian had a really stupid power at the time. And then Prudence was still there, and she still had a sister, but I wasn't really dealing with that because that was going to be in book 2. But Prudence, while hanging out in the school, she did start to uncover a plot of students and teachers who were in this like crazy religious cult.
Where's the story going?
And they believed that they could resurrect this ancient god who they thought was the father of all the superheroes. And if they could resurrect this god by finding the 3 artifacts that belong to this god, then they would be given the powers of this god and they could raise an army and take over the world. And when Nova heard this, she thought, I must find the artifacts and then I will become the greatest villain and I will take over the world. So that was pretty much the plot of version number 4. So I sent it off to my editor and wished it well. And my editor wrote back a few days later after reading it. And my editor is the sweetest, kindest person. And it was a very sweet, kind letter. But it was also honest. And it's really good, Marissa, fast-paced, lots happening. Maybe it could use a little bit more focus. Notes. It became very clear that I was looking at yet another complete rewrite of the book. I don't want to do this. All I want to do is write a book about a superhero who falls in love with a supervillain, but I can't do that because they want a trilogy, and there's not enough there to make a trilogy out of it. And my agent, who's very, very wise, says, well, Marissa, why don't you just write a standalone? I thought, can I do that? Is that allowed? And immediately I thought, that solves everything. And so I got rid of the schools went away, the crazy religious cult went away, the vigilante gangs went away, it all went away. And I went to the mall the next day because I needed a new journal, I needed a blank journal to start in. And I found the very first store I went into had this really super cool Wonder Woman journal.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, it's so symbolic in so many ways. And so I bought that, and I took myself out to lunch and spent hours and just started writing about Adrian and Nova and this idea of a superhero falling in love with a supervillain and what is that story. And from there, I ended up writing their story in about 2.5 months, and it came to about 200,000 words. So at one point, as I'm writing it, it's getting longer and longer and longer. I thought, maybe we could do a duology. And my editor, once she read it, was like, it could totally be a duology. And so it became 2 books. Instead of 1, instead of 3, it's 2. It's perfect. I'm so happy. And miraculously, I was able to get it turned in, and they were able to get it printed, and it's here, it exists, it's in the world. And the best part is that it is actually the story that I wanted to tell from the beginning. Which there were many times when I lost sight of it, and I felt like I wouldn't get it back. I couldn't get back to where I had wanted this book to be in the first place. But it's here now, and I'm so happy with it, and I truly hope that you guys will love it. Thank you.
So there you guys have it. I got to meet Marissa Meyer again. I got the book before it comes out, which is technically tomorrow. So I'm gonna dive into it, and I'm gonna also have a review, which keep an eye out on my channel. Hopefully I get to read it within this week. It's kind of a busy week, but not really. So hopefully I can get it in as much as possible, and I can't wait to get my review up and to read Renegades. I'm so excited. So tune in for that video. Bye guys.